Welcome to the Fierce Kind Mama of Multiples podcast. This podcast is for anyone expecting or currently raising multiples, twins, triplets, or more. I speak to inspiring parents of multiples who have healed from unexpected pregnancies and birthing experiences and who candidly share the highs and lows of raising multiples. I also speak to the professionals that work with multiple birth families. Together, we cover the practicalities of raising more than one baby at a time, as well as enhancing the emotional well-being of caregivers and children alike. Come join us as we laugh, cry, and share our personal and professional wisdom on all things multiples. I am your host, Dr. Christina Kvetsa, and I am a fierce kind mama of multiples. Today I'm joined by Chantelle Morrissey, a twin mom and physiotherapist in pelvic physio, developmental delays, and neurological conditions. Chantelle is a mom to 4 kids, age 9, 2 5-year-olds, and a 3-year-old, and she developed 2 businesses and undertook 2 degrees while juggling parenthood, pregnancy, and all the busyness that goes with it. Chantelle is passionate about working with twins and twin moms to help them to live their lives the best way they can, as well as supporting parents in the unique journey that it is having multiple babies at once. In this episode, Chantelle candidly shares her physical and mental struggles with her multiple birth pregnancy and how different it was to her singleton births, and how pursuing her professional endeavors helped her. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Chantelle. So I'd love to welcome today on this episode, Chantelle Morrissey. Welcome. So lovely to have you here.
Lovely to be here, Christina. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be on the multiple birth journey, and how you support parents of multiples?
So I'm a physiotherapist and I work in pelvic health and neuro rehab and a little bit in developmental pediatrics as well. But 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, I became a twin parent as well. I had a singleton who's now 9, back when I was still studying physio. We waited 3 years or so before trying again. And it took quite a long time to get pregnant for us. I think it was 6 months we were trying in the end, which is fine. 6 months I think is pretty good in the grand scheme of things. Being a healthcare worker, you kind of know it can take some time. But just so happened I got pregnant with twins and their due date was like right on my daughter's birthday. And I'm like, can I only get pregnant in spring like some sort of deer? And then I did it again when their twins were 1. I got pregnant again, not planning, same time, same due dates. So I have 4 kids now, all born around the same time of year. So I'm very careful in spring, very careful.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just my body. If I was trying through winter, it just didn't happen. I don't have twins in the family. I didn't take any medication or anything like that. As all of you twin parents know, we get asked that 1,000 times. My standard answer is, how did you get twins? The missionary position. Or I also say, do it twice and then you get twins. Whatever works for people. I kind of knew that I was having twins. I had one of those really weird gut instinct experiences where I was like, I just found out I was pregnant, didn't know it was twins. And I'm making my breakfast and I just had this errant thought, wouldn't it be funny if it was twins this time? And I cracked my egg for my breakfast. And of course, it had 2 yolks in it. And my stomach just dropped, went, oh, that meant something. And I went from frying my eggs to waking up my first child. She jumps out of bed. She doesn't know I'm pregnant. She jumps out of bed and announces that her favorite teddy has 2 babies in its tummy. And her other teddy, her piggy, also has 2 babies in its tummy. And it was a period of about 2 weeks where that's all she would talk about. And every time I made my breakfast, it was a double yolker, every single time. If my husband made my breakfast, it was a double yolker. So I decided at 5.5 weeks, I'm like, we're getting scanned because we're having twins. We're totally having twins. And in the waiting room for the scan, I remember the time just setting a little prayer up, just saying, please let it be twins, because I'll actually be so disappointed if it's not. And we went in, it's twins. All I said was I knew it. And it was just the difference in my life between feeling like I chose it and feeling like it happened to me. It was really powerful. That really set the tone for being a twin parent. Like, it was so hard, but I felt like that's okay. This is what you wanted, and you're really lucky. You know, they're beautiful babies. You got two. This is going to be amazing. We just got to survive this, and it'll be amazing.
That is an amazing story. I don't know if I've ever heard of something so, almost like the stars were aligning, or the universe was sending you messages that, this is going to be, it's almost like a fortune cookie,
It is a
this
bit,
is going
isn't
to
it?
be in your life. But then not only that, what I find quite remarkable about your story is that you adopted that belief, like you took it on and had real faith that I'm having twins and now I actually want this.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think that? What's that?
It was amazing. It was amazing. I'm grateful for it. Like, I'm a believer. I believe in a God. And for me, that's what it meant to me. And I know for someone, a lot of people have the belief of the universe and like putting things out there. I think when you can have these stories shared in like a twin group, and you'll find so many parents or mums or whatever that have had these weird experiences. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful for it, because it was the hardest thing I'd ever gone through. It was such a dark time after they were born for mental health. And it took such a long time to come out of it. Like, holding on to that, it's huge. When you think that, like, woe is me, this has happened to me, I wish I didn't have it. And lots of twin mums will feel like that, and it can pass. But that would have been really damaging to my battle with mental health if I had that belief for me.
Yes. Yeah. Could you speak to, if you're comfortable sharing with us, what it was like, for you in terms of your mental health? You said it was kind of a dark time, and I imagine you're saying after they were born, so not during the pregnancy, but after.
I had both. I had both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had antenatal depression and anxiety, but after was by far so much worse. The pregnancy was really tough. I had hyperemesis, and I had that all the way through. And it was really poorly managed at the time. Like, I had it again for the next pregnancy and looked up the guidelines myself and demanded the right medication and was a lot better. But the twin pregnancy, I didn't have the medical support that I needed. And I was just sick the whole way through. And they were like, well, you'll survive it. Like, keep fluids down and, who cares? I had really severe pelvic girdle pain, which was a shock too, because I was so fit and so strong before. Even as a physio, I went into it and was like, I don't have risk factors for PGP. I loved treating PGP. It was one of my obsessions. I created pamphlets for it and chose to write my final assignments on it. Love treating PGP. And it was just like, I remember going to see my physio that I worked with, she's just an amazing physio and had 15 years experience on me, just saying, why is this happening? And why is it not getting better? She's like, it's twins. All bets are off. Like, you just need to let it go. You've just got to try and get through this. You'll be fine after they're born. You will. You've just got to get through this time. And I was like, yeah, okay, it's twins. Like, you just got to survive. The pregnancy was just about survival. And I couldn't work after 20 weeks, which was a tough thing to go into for mental health after they were born. And couldn't walk, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I had like overactive uterus. So I had contractions every 5 minutes, 8 hours of the day from like 20 weeks until the end. I thought I was in labor the whole time, but I wasn't. It was just really excitable uterus. But that was quite painful and uncomfortable. And then when they were born, they were Caesar, which was fine. They were breech. So that's how we went. And then it came into the time I felt amazing for like the first 6 weeks. I had them out of me. I could breathe. I could walk. Like, I will take that gigantic Caesar scar any day over the twin pregnancy. Like, it was just, I felt on top of the world. And I had this day when they were about 6 weeks old where I was breastfeeding them on the couch. They fell asleep. I put them up on my chest and I just cuddled them for 2 hours. Just didn't move, just cuddled my babies and the little snuffling breast. And it's kind of really tragic to me because there's a photo taken of that time, but it's the last thing I could remember for months, because after that, my mental health just dived. And depression was probably the biggest thing. Anxiety was really severe. I never got sleep. They had reflux. They had multiple food protein intolerances, and the doctors, again, they just weren't helping. They were like, oh, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. I'm like, well, again, go read the guidelines myself. Yes, it's a thing. So I had to manage that on my own until getting a pediatrician who knew what they were talking about when they were like 6 months. Really refluxy, just never. There was like 8 weeks, the first 8 weeks, I just didn't sleep at all until I started to like eliminate things out of my diet. And they just changed so quickly. Like they started to sleep longer stretches. They weren't screaming as much and they were a little bit more settled, but it was still so tough, like 2 hours. I remember thinking it was months that I was sleeping like 3 hours total a day, but I'd never get more than 45 minutes in a row. And it was that period of my life, like my husband was trying to finish his uni. He was working. I used to go to work for like 3 hours a week just to get a break. My boss was amazing. And I would just go, I just need to be here. Like I'm a mess. I haven't slept. I am surviving on coffee. If I drink a whole bunch of coffee before coming here, I can get through 3 hours of being a professional. And after that, I'll start to like blend my words together. But that was the only time in the whole week that I just didn't feel like dying. It was just like I remember driving to work and I was like, I can't people today. I am a mess. I just don't want to be here. And I'm like, Chantelle, just walk through the door. Because when that first patient comes in and it's about them, not you, you're going to be okay. And every single time that would get me through, and it just gave me this reprieve. And it was a bit of a shock that work was one of the things I needed to get better. But it was big, and it was hard for my families to just be on watch for my safety and my husband. Like it was such a hard thing for him. But we got through it. Like they got to, I know by the time they were 1, I was doing really well. And I'm sure between 6 months and 12 months, I just got a lot better. I took all the medications and stuff, but they didn't. Again, at the time, I did a lot better in my next pregnancy, and I sort of researched for myself some of the reasons why my physiology was prone to that. And I was just better prepared, because it's just always, oh, you're depressed, just throw antidepressants, a particular type at you, and they just were making me worse. I just wasn't sleeping. But it's unfortunately a story of health professionals just letting me down. But we got through it, and then I finally started to come good and got pregnant again.
Wow.
That was tough, really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, halfway through the next pregnancy, I had better medication for hyperemesis. I had much better management of my mental health, much, much better. And although I had all of the same stuff happen again, I got better much, much quicker with my next pregnancy. And for the most part, was quite well for that pregnancy and for most of the postpartum period. So it was just twins. I wrote a blog on it maybe a year ago, and I remember thinking, yeah, I'm going to write this blog on depression. It was 4 years ago. Like I'm on this now, and it was dark to go back to that place. Like I just remember writing it out and all the things that happened and all the people that had supported me, and just thinking, oh, this isn't like the hope and the happiness and that achievement. Like this was my survival story. That's all it was. And I'm just so glad that I survived it.
Yeah.
But isn't that awful for mums to have to just have survival as their hope, right?
Yeah.
We should. I just wish for more for parents. I wish there could have been more for me then as well. But I definitely am passionate about that for the mums that I work with now. Just the screening for depression and giving them the right supports. There's a lot of really good supports out there if you know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's key, isn't it? And, when you were talking, thank you so much for sharing that, your story. And as you said, it is really a story of survival. And I think for a lot of mums of multiples, there's in my coaching program, I actually talk about this idea that we kind of need to heal from what is often an unexpected pregnancy, an unexpected birthing experience, an unexpected postnatal, with all the complications that can come up. The breastfeeding often doesn't work out the way you planned, like all of that. So it's really, particularly for moms of multiples, there's this need to, I guess, heal from wounds. There's obviously, as you said, sometimes, many moms of multiples have cesareans. So there's the physical wound, but I reckon the emotional wounds are
Yes,
far
massive.
greater.
Yeah. It's so, especially with two. I remember in sleep school, I went to sleep school with my first and my second, and I did psychology in my undergrad. And they always play this video of the test that they do with the mums where they practice just getting the mum to give the baby a blank face and not respond to the baby's gurgles and smiles and cooing. And I watched it first at 18, that video at uni, and I watched and like, wow, that baby like really quickly turns in itself. It looks at its hands and it just tries again to engage mum and then goes back to its hands, tries again, goes back to its hands, and then just starts crying.
Yeah.
And they show this video like this is why treating postnatal depression is so important, because what are we doing to these babies in their development? And I remember having the twins on the change table and I'm sobbing and they're smiling at me and I'm forcing my face to smile back, even though I'm sobbing. And I'm so terrified of traumatizing them because I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
Like I have to respond to them. I've got to pick them up, but there's two of them. They both need me. One's left screaming and I can't get to it. What's that going to do to that baby? Like you get that, you kind of feel like you've got this one chance to develop their emotional health. Like, what am I doing? Like, they would be better off if I wasn't here. They would be better off with a healthy parent. Like, and then I go to sleep school with the twins and they play the stupid video again. And I just got up and walked out of the room. Like, I'm not watching it again. I've watched it 4 times. That's my trauma video. We're not watching that video. I don't want to hear it. I'm doing the best I can. I'm smiling through my tears because I just am so scared I'm going to damage them because I'm so damaged. You know?
Yeah. Hi there, fierce kind mama. Are you expecting multiples and wondering how you're going to cope when the babies arrive? Or do you already have multiples at home and wonder, will this ever get easier? First of all, let me say loud and clear, I get it. Feeling overwhelmed in motherhood is really common, and us mothers of multiples are particularly prone to feeling sometimes like it's all too much. I know for myself that becoming a first-time mother to twins at the age of 40 was a huge adjustment, physically and psychologically. So I've taken my years of training in mental health and my experience coaching mothers of multiples and put together a guide with my 5 top tips for overcoming overwhelm as a multiple birth parent. This guide is free, of course, and it doesn't matter what age multiples you have. You may be pregnant, or your multiples might have already left home. The principles apply to all parents of multiples. And because I know you're short on time, I've broken down the tips into easy-to-read chunks that you can begin implementing straight away. You can get your free copy now by signing up at my website, fiercekindmama.com. And I've definitely heard other moms of multiples say, and not even just moms of multiples, but any mother who's experiencing a mental health crisis, if you like, or condition, depression, and all of that, postnatal depression, anxiety. It's, often the question is, am I going to harm my child? Is this going to have long lasting effects on my child or my children, in the case of a multiple birth parent? So, obviously you're, a successful professional, you've got 4 kids, you've managed to juggle parenthood, the pregnancy, the uni degrees, the businesses. Could you speak a little bit to how you did all of that? Because I imagine people listening to this might be thinking, especially if they're an expectant mother of multiples, they might be like, whoa, is this what I have to look forward to? Like, how am I going to manage, But obviously you did and you survived. So how did you do it?
Yeah, I want to preface it with 2 things. One, this sounds a little bit conceited, but I'll just say it as it is. I'm not normal. I'm just not. I have a lot of mums that I speak to that almost feel guilty if I share with them stuff, or shame because they can't do that. But I couldn't do anything when I had one baby. I just couldn't. It's just not where I was at that point in time. And I couldn't do much when I had baby twins either. But when I got my life, I just got on top of managing things better and made that discovery, particularly after the twins, that I am so much happier for working a little bit and not just being full-time at home. That was a shock to me because I always thought I'd be a stay-at-home mum. And to realize I actually can't do that. My mental health will tank. I can't cope with it. And I really love time away, coming back in, having a job completely outside of parenthood But though what I've managed to do, even just in the last 2 years, is very much outside the norm of what many women would or should be doing. I just want to preface that, but I had to learn in the last 2 years to ask for the help I needed and be confident enough to set up my life how I wanted it, to do the things I wanted to do. And a huge part of doing any of that was help. Like, we had so much help when my twins were born, like all the way through. We had friends coming in. We had both sets of grandparents coming in and helping. We had my sister for a time helping. We had a church community, and a lot of those people would just come in once a week and help. We also had mums from the twin group would just come in. They're like, I've got this, go have a nap. Like, I could not have got through that without help. We were really low income at the time. We couldn't afford any of the, like, everything was secondhand or donated. We certainly couldn't. We had a period of time where my maternal child health nurse had got them access to daycare under children at risk for mothers' mental health. And it was like a 13-week period of daycare. And I did that when they were really young, thinking, okay, well, I could go sleep. Like, if I put them in daycare, I could go sleep. And it was helpful to a degree, but it also made things a lot harder because they got sick constantly. So I still look at the daycare experience and I'm just not sure the impact that it had. I discovered with my next pregnancy, when I was really unwell, after having the fourth kid, before I'd sort of got on top of things, we had the same funding scheme, but for in-home care, because we had switched out of the daycare system for work and we'd gone to in-home care. That held the whole house of cards together. That was massive. So getting through that period, like the twins were 2, had a newborn. Around the time my fourth was born, the other 3 kids were all one by one getting diagnosed with autism. So, this is why it's so hard. Like, this makes a lot of sense. And then I knew that the fourth was very likely to be autistic as well. You know, you're not going to get, it's not often you'll get 3 kids and then the next one's neurotypical. It was really, really hard. And I was sort of going down again, even with good medical management, until we had the in-home care pick up to support me with my mental health. And also my husband has chronic fatigue syndrome. So his help was very intermittent, but he was also working full-time in an office. So when he was home, he was only able to do so much. That was massive. That was huge. Help, help, help. That's how I got through. And even now that we don't need those supports anymore and that I'm well and the kids are older, I built a business in the time that I had when I was working, and I did have support because I was like, I need this support to continue when we don't have funding for that anymore, because I really can't go back to the way we used to live our life. Like, it was so hard. So that's how we get through. Like, I have a nanny. So I was saying to a friend today who was like, this is wild. Like, how do you do business and uni and that? And I'm like, well, you go to work and you pick all the kids up from daycare, which I've done a lot. You come home, they're exhausted, the house is trashed, you've got to cook their dinner, you've got to bath, you've got to get them to bed. I come home from work and they're bathed in pajamas and they're happy and the house is clean. And I just get to sit and cuddle my kids until I put them to bed. That's a pretty good life. I think a lot of mums might have a different life if they had the right support. And I just really wish we structured society differently. Like, for us, daycare was really tough because we just catch every bug under the sun, and we had gastro like every 6 weeks, like clockwork. It was really brutal on us. Like, that time of our life was really hard. But that's the thing. If you get your time back, like, what would you do with it? Maybe you're the kind of person that would just try and breathe and like be healthy. And for me, being like, when we hit lockdowns and all of our care got cut and we suddenly had to both work full time and have no childcare, because when they made daycare free, they completely removed in-home care funding for that whole period of time. That was really, really tough. And for me in that time to get through lockdowns and the restrictions, I signed up for my master's. And that's where I'm weird. I just needed it. I needed something outside of like homeschooling, work, stress. I was like, this is for me. This is just for me. Yes. And I loved it. Like, I'm almost done. I'm one subject to go. And I've enjoyed it so much. It was my lifesaver in those dark times of lockdowns. Kids at home.
That's amazing. When I'm listening to you speak, I think how incredible, because lockdown for many people, I think people might have picked up some I don't know, negative habits, or, might have
Yeah.
picked up something that was what will comfort me in this moment, maybe some food or,
I've got plenty
you
of
know,
those. Plenty of
yeah.
those habits. Yeah.
Yeah. But you've also got this other side to you, which is, well, I recognize that for my mental health, being professionally engaged, like stimulating my mind, that helps me. And so you did it, you still
Yeah.
worked, but you also then went to study. I think that's amazing. That's really
I
incredible.
had to. There's a lot going on in my mind. And if
Yeah.
I can direct it towards things that are interesting to me and productive, that's my happy place. Drives my
Yeah.
husband nuts because I sign up for stuff. He's like, oh, we're doing a master's now. Like my poor husband has to pick up a lot of slack, but he's just the best. Like just picking up things. It's like, okay, here we go.
Yes. Yes.
Like it's
Well,
okay, it all works out, honey.
yeah. It's lovely to have that support. And I think that that's another key theme that I'm hearing you speak about is, in order to be a successful mom of multiples, you really need to draw on some kind of support system, whether it's,
Yes.
your partner, extended family, professionals coming in, nannies, daycare, whatever it is. You really can't do it on your own.
No,
It's tough. It's
you
certainly
can't.
tough.
And I'm a huge fan of mums studying and trying to further their careers because it's difficult in certain industries to get to a position where you can kind of have that life balance. Like it's really, really hard to achieve. Like I think particularly with interest rates and rent going up the way it is, like it's hard. I know that many, many people it's difficult to get out of that space. I'm a big fan of education for women because when you can provide for yourself and have something outside of your family, like that age when they get to school and you've got a little bit more time free, or they're 18 and independent, and you might have had this period of time where you've had to put your career and your life and your dreams on hold, it then becomes very difficult to pick those things up and to come back to yourself. And there's a period of time when you've got babies, you just don't worry about any of it. Just get through it until you can get to a space of having breathing space. But I'm so passionate about families and communities and partners supporting mums to study and further themselves, because with those studies, if they're picking something that they're good at and they enjoy and that has a really good job at the end of it, that's massive. I've spent a lot of time trying to encourage some of the mums I know and the single mums I know, like, you can do uni. Like, you're quite intelligent. Believe me, I've done it. And I struggled a lot to get to uni at all and then to get through it and to do well. I didn't come from a background of achievers or educated family or any of that. Like, I did it, and I totally think that you can do it. Like, and you'll feel amazing to know how intelligent and powerful and capable you are.
Yes.
And I've watched some of them do that. I've watched some of them start it, go, oh, I can do it, and then have to put it on hold because of kids.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But now they finally know you can.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you do it now. Doesn't mean you have to. You know, maybe you just needed to know that it was possible and that you are capable. And it changes your whole perspective on yourself and how you raise your kids, you know, when you can have that self-esteem for yourself as well. Yes, I could go on. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox.
No, I love it. I love it. And I totally agree with you 100%. I think it's empowering. And I think when you were speaking too, it's really about how can we as women be successful, maintain that success without the sacrifice, without having to sacrifice, our desires, our needs, our wants, our goals. We really can have a family, if that is one of our goals, and still have the career and still have the education, if that's what we want,
Exactly.
And
if that's what you want is a big one. Like, it's heartbreaking to see women beat themselves up when they see other women succeed. Like, I should be doing that. Like, why didn't I do that? And they just add to that feeling of failure. And it's just so unfair on them. Like, there's plenty of times in my parenting journey that I had to let go of all my goals and dreams and whatever I had intended. Like, I was enrolled in a grad cert when I got pregnant with my fourth, and I had to let it go. And then the next year when I picked it up again, COVID shut it down. I only did it like last year, finished it off at the end of 2021. after 3 years of trying because of everything that happened that I had to just let it go. And that's really important too, to just go, not now. Like, you got to sleep. You got to get some sleep. It's really hard to do anything if you're not sleeping. If I don't get sleep, no, we're done. We're not doing anything. We're going to sit on at the couch at night, drinking a gin and just watching trashy TV. That is what I do when I have kids that don't sleep. I don't get much of anything done. Maybe I can work if I can safely drive a car, but changing it based on what your life situation is and not taking it all on you. Like, I cannot do those things and be keeping my house clean. I can delegate some of the things to build my life to a situation where I can delegate stuff so that I can do those things that I want to do, but I have a finite amount that I can do. It's just that I'm a heck of a lot happier writing a thesis than I would be scrubbing my shower. So if I can set my life up to have someone else scrub my shower, maybe I'll have time to do this other thing that I'm passionate about. I've been very lucky in my life to have people around me that supported those dreams and goals, and grandparents that valued what we valued and wanted to help us get there. Like, it's just massive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. It really is. And I think that there's a sense that what you said about surviving as well in those early months and those early years, that's really important too. And not having to think that, these dreams have to be put on hold forever. They might have to be put on hold at certain points in your life, but that's okay, that they're not going anywhere necessarily. Education will be there, work will be there. It's more about getting yourself mentally and emotionally ready to take on both of those kind of roles, the mothering role as well as the professional role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar in like physical recovery from pregnancy, which was a hard lesson with twins because I exercise for mental health.
Yes.
And so I think it was like 8 weeks post the Caesar as a physio. I was like, well, I didn't have a vaginal birth, so I'm not putting myself at risk of prolapse. I'm just going to try run again and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
My physio at the time was like, you're not ready. I'm like, I know, but I might not get an injury if I'm really careful. And it sounds wild, but I know enough about the body, my body, and my profession that I'm not going to hurt myself. If I'm doing something and I'm like, this is going to cause an injury, I'm going to start. And that's what happened. I tried to run for like 4 weeks. And I remember the first time I ran, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my body. And it's running and it's just like they were never in me, sort of. I'm exhausted and it hurts and everything was wonky. But I was so desperate for what I had. And my beautiful physio that I've mentioned before, I came to her and like, it's just not working. Like, my pelvis is still so clunky and I'm so exhausted. I am going to hurt myself. Like, I have to stop. She said, just because you do the things that you used to do doesn't mean you're going to feel like you used to feel. You are not that person right now. Like, you got to let it go. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. I was trying to be who I was, running, swimming, whatever, to feel the way I used to feel. And I'm just not that person anymore. So, okay, that's true. That's what I needed. As I still never successfully returned to running. And they're 5.5. It was just, my body has changed tremendously. It's just not, even now, 3 kids in 2 years, it's just not recovered enough to cope with something like that, even though I've done all the things you need to do. And that's hard to accept, but.
Yes, I imagine it would be.
Yeah.
So how do you find other ways to get that same kind of pleasurable feeling that running and exercise gave you?
It's still a journey even now because I have returned. I've done lots of times of returning to running, and unfortunately in lockdowns I rolled my ankle and I completely tore a ligament that you need to weight bear, which was pretty devastating. So I had to have an ankle reconstruction. And then I had sort of tried to return to running, wasn't really going very well. And then I tore it again and I had ankle surgery again 6 months ago. And I am certainly, that ankle can't handle the impact of running even now. But when I did run and did swim, my body metabolism has shifted hugely. And now I have these issues with thyroid, PCOS, adenomyosis, all of these hormonal conditions where running and swimming are really not great for me. That's very hard to accept as a physio, that this body can't cope with cardio. I love cardio. I used to say, I love it, but it doesn't love me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm getting into these little rabbit holes, realizing that if your thyroid's not fantastic, the cardio can make me feel very unwell. And shifting, now is my year to just completely shift. A lot of my uni's done, work is a little bit quieter. It's like, okay, I'm just going back to basics, back to Pilates, back to weight training. I've got to change my relationship with exercise, because I love the feeling of cardio, and that getting in a pool and just going for an hour and getting out in the bay and just swimming for a long distance. Like, I love all of that stuff. It's just, this is my body now. Maybe it was going to end up like this anyway as I got older. I don't know, but I have to respect it and what it's done, creating 3 babies in such a short space of time, and trying to just accept it as it is, because it's let me down so much. Yeah. It hasn't been able to do the things I want to. I never struggled with the stretch marks and the weight gain, whatever it is. That stuff didn't bother me. I was like, but my body's amazing. Look what it can do. And now it's like, well, it can't do those things anymore. It's still amazing. It made my babies. It gives me my job. It gives me my life, that I can do the things I want. I work with people who can't do any of the things they wish they could do. And I can. And I've just got to accept that I'm not going to do the things that I used to do perhaps for a very long time, and accept what I've got now, because the amazing gifts I've had are so worth it. And again, shifting your expectations.
Absolutely.
Thought you were going to be here. Like, okay, here we are. We're not there. Possibly not going to get there. That's okay. Where to next?
Yeah. And it sounds like, we really, in that instance, we could really have 2 choices. We could, focus on what we've lost, or really think about what we've gained and be proud of what our body has been through and what it's achieved and what it's given us, even though we have lost something,
Yes.
There's that acceptance that things change.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could, in the time that we have remaining, speak a bit about the work that you do with twin mums or supporting, multiple birth families.
There's 2 roles that I have as a physio with twin parents. One is as a developmental pediatric physio. So I hesitate to say that I do much of that now, because since I've done my ankle, we have employed an amazingly experienced, awesome pediatric physio. She's just such a gun. But before she was working with us, I had 4 twin families that we were working with, and they're all the same age. It was very funny, like just sort of sitting at that, and then they'd all get to the next age together. And it was funny as a physio, because you're like, these are the expectations of all of the kids we're working with right now. This is what we're aiming for. They're all kids who are autistic, and a lot of those kids will have coordination issues, such as developmental coordination disorder. They might have issues with fine motor skills and gross motor skills. They might be low tone, hypermobile. There's like a gamut of issues that tend to cluster together for autistic kids, and you might get a new mix of them. And that's fascinating, because as an adult, I have discovered that I have coordination disorder. I'm not just really, really clumsy. There's a name for it. And I totally get how that motor skill is developed, because I have spent my whole life like, you want to catch a ball, you've just got to keep practicing it. But for me, that doesn't work. Like, I don't have that part of my brain that everyone else does that just works out how to perform a motor task. And I've always had to adapt and adjust how I do things to accommodate. And that's exactly what these kids need and what physio helps with. And it's just amazing. Like, just working with these parents like me, raising autistic kids, and NDIS and all of the dramas that come with that, and just being able to help them in that space. Like, I love it. I'm more of a, like, not a supervisor, but I'm still involved with all the families that we work with, but I don't do that physio in person anymore. I just keep up with families and support them. It's just the best. Oh, I love those kids. The kids just come so far. It's just, it's amazing. This to see, like, at that young age, what they can overcome, and just like, wow, like, look at you now. Like, look how far you have come. It's just the most amazing, awesome experience. And then on the other side of it, I'm a pelvic floor physio, and I work with mums in pregnancy, postpartum. Oh, I'm so excited when twin mums come through the door. It's just a different world, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Pregnant women in general, I just love it. I love Mattress Sense, that creation of a mother. Like, I get so excited when I get a first time pregnant mum.
Yes.
Like, just, oh my gosh, like, you have so much amazingness ahead of you. Like this, of course there's like super hard things, but like, it's just so amazing, like, to just watch this woman change and grow. And twin parents too, like, there's been plenty of times, I still remember bumping into a twin mum when my twins were like 1 or something. And I saw her come into like a beach as we were leaving. And I said, oh, twin love. I said something negative. I can't remember what it was. Some silly negative thing, like, it'll get better one day, like something like that. And I remember afterwards thinking like, Chantelle, that sucks. Like, I wish I'd been able to be more positive that day. Like, I wish I'd been able to tell them that it's also amazing. Yes. And getting to that point now when twin mums come in, like, oh, mate, I know. It is like harder than hard. It is not twice as hard as one baby. It is like 3 times harder than one baby, at least in my experience. And that's okay. Just acknowledge it. Maybe they'll get a really good pregnancy and really good babies. Like, fantastic. I'm so glad someone else has a better experience than, what we went through. That's great. But I love working with those mums, helping them through that. We work with breastfeeding in terms of like mastitis treatment as well. That I love. Like, breastfeeding multiples is a whole different ball game.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff that comes up with that, and feeding positions, and more likely to get mastitis and latch issues, and all of that. Like, it's such an awesome space to live in. Like, that's still a big part of my identity, is just being a twin mom. And they're 5, they're so stinking cute. Like, to watch them walk into prep together, it's all worth it.
Yes.
All worth it. To see them at the same age and then grow up and be best friends, and they've only just found out they can't marry each other. They were devastated. So cute. That's the best. So
yes, it's funny that you. Yeah,
you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny that you say that, because my boys said something they're 6 years old, and they said something very similar recently when we were driving in the car, and we were talking about, eventually you're going to move out of the home and you'll be living on your own. And they said something like, oh, well, I'm just going to marry you. They're going to marry each other and then they'll never have to be apart.
we were like all as a family in the car, and they were like, oh, mummy married daddy. And then Eloise and Bjorn are my twins, and they're like, I'm going to marry Buddy and we're going to have a little baby. And Bjorn's like, yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have a baby together. And the eldest is like, you can't marry each other.
Yes.
And then I was like, guys, I'm sorry, but you can't marry each other. And they started crying and really weeping. And like, my 9-year-old is laughing. And I'm like, Florian, just leave it. Everyone just leave it. Yes, you can marry each other. It's fine. Like, they're not growing. Like, seriously. They're 5. Leave them be. And so they, for quite a long time, kept that belief until they realised at school, oh, we have to pick someone else. Oh, that's hard. Who are we going to pick? Like, so cute.
Yes. Well, Chantelle, I think we could keep talking for hours. There's so much richness in your story and in your experience. I just want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your personal and professional experiences with being a multiple birth mom and with working with multiple birth families. Thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And thank you so much for the work that you do in supporting multiple birth families.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about twin life. So thank you. I really appreciate being on the podcast and sharing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And where can people find out more about you and your services?
So we have a pelvic floor clinic that works through the Southeastern Peninsula called Southeast Pelvic Physio. So my treating location is in Carrum Downs in Victoria, and my home-based physiotherapy business is called Peninsula Community Physiotherapy. They both have pretty simple websites you can find in the show notes, but if you Google them, you'll find us.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely put that information in the show notes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you've heard, then please consider subscribing and leaving a review so that other expectant and current parents of multiples like yourself can find this podcast and the valuable information it contains. I would be so very grateful if you left a review and shared this with anyone you think could benefit from listening. If you have a particular topic you'd like me to cover on this podcast, feel free to reach out to me via my website, fiercekindmama.com, or connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Fierce Kind Mama of Multiples. New episodes are released every fortnight, so we'll see you back here real soon. Any advice and information in this podcast is general only and has been prepared without taking into account your particular circumstances and needs. For tailored, individualized advice, please consult with a qualified professional.